According to the American Medical Association, people should take multiple vitamins every day to help prevent chronic illnesses like cancer, heart disease, and dementia. Almost 80% of us do not eat at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. You know, that's the recommended dose. Likewise, I believe all of us should take a fish oil supplement every day. Why? One of the main ingredients in fish oil, as I've said, is omega-3 fatty acids, found to be low in depression, low in dementia, low in people who have attention deficit disorder, and low in people who try to kill themselves. Taking fish oil on a regular basis, every day, has been found to be good for your heart, good for your skin, good for your eyes, good for your joints, good for your hair. Obviously, I started late. And good for your brain. I think all of us, as a baseline, should take between 1 to 2 grams a day of high-quality fish oil. Of course, you should talk to your doctor. And if you're a vegetarian and you don't want to take fish oil, you can take flaxseed oil. Now, the next thing to do is work your brain. Why? Because new learning is essential to keeping your brain young. Whenever you learn something new, your brain actually makes a physical new connection. When you stop learning, your brain actually starts to disconnect itself. Now, for this strategy to be effective, you need to learn things that are new and different for you. So, for example, if you're a gourmet chef and you learn a new recipe, well, that's not good for you. Why? Because you already know how to cook. That's like second nature or a piece of cake. But learning a language, or learning about a new country, or learning to play the piano can be just ever so helpful, and it doesn't take much time. 15 minutes a day. That's all it takes. Change your exercise, change your brain. Exercise is literally the fountain of youth. People who exercise on a regular basis have better cognitive abilities. They think better, their concentration's better, and their memory's better. Exercise boosts blood flow to the brain. Exercise also boosts growth factors in the brain that help you grow new neurons. What? I thought we were born with all the brain cells that we would ever have. Wrong! About 10 years ago, they discovered that the brain continues to make new neurons throughout life. How exciting is that? So you can actually encourage new brain cell growth just by exercising. Now, the best exercises for your brain are both aerobic, where you get your heart rate up, that's boosting blood flow to your brain, and coordination exercises, right? So just being on the treadmill, there's not much coordination with that. That's not necessarily good for your brain. But something like dancing, especially where you're learning new steps, now that is great for your brain. Unless, of course, you're drinking while you're dancing. The next great brain exercise, and I'm not kidding, is table tennis. Because you have to get your eyes, your hands, and your feet all to work together at the same time while you're thinking about the spins on the ball. There's this fascinating study from Japan where they actually scan people before and after playing table tennis for 10 minutes. And what they found is their cerebellum worked better and their prefrontal cortex, remember that? The most human, thoughtful part of your brain, also worked better. Table tennis is great for your brain. So more table tennis, less football, and boxing. Do you think boxing is a good brain sport? Say bad brain sport. Come on, let's be thoughtful about this. All right, who among you wants to live to 85 or beyond? Okay, you want to pay attention now. Why? Because 50% of people who live to 85 will be diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Wow. Well, that means you need to pay attention, and you're at risk for Alzheimer's disease. If you have a family member that has it, if you have a personal history of a head injury, heart disease, a stroke, diabetes, cancer, ADD, or depression, you're at risk for Alzheimer's disease if you don't exercise twice a week. You're at risk for Alzheimer's disease if you do not engage in regular lifelong learning. And if you pay attention to me, I'm going to teach you how to prevent it. With these strategies that I'm going to talk about, you can delay the onset of Alzheimer's disease by 6 years or more. But you need to make these interventions part of your life now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk to you about each of the risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. Okay, so the first risk factor is genetics. You have it in your family, and there are certain genes that increase your risk for Alzheimer's disease. So if you have a genetic risk, how do you decrease that risk? Well, you can't get different parents. So what that means is you have to take prevention seriously, as early as possible. The next risk is a brain injury. If you've had a brain injury, you have a higher risk, especially if you have Alzheimer's disease in your family. Now, how do you prevent getting a brain injury? Wear your seatbelt. Drive a safe vehicle. Wear helmets that fit. Don't play with your brain. And if you had a head injury, know that you're at a higher risk and you have to take prevention seriously. If you drink too much alcohol, you now have a higher risk for Alzheimer's disease. How do you decrease or eliminate this risk? Stop drinking. This is not that hard. Drink less. If you have cardiovascular disease, including hypertension or high cholesterol levels, that increases your risk for Alzheimer's disease. How do you decrease that risk? It's diet and exercise. And if you have heart disease or vascular disease, don't play with it. Get it treated. Because when these things run away from you, you are so much more likely to be demented. If you exercise less than twice a week, you now have a higher risk for Alzheimer's disease. So how do you decrease that risk? Exercise more. If you drop out of school, or if you're in jobs that do not require lifelong learning, you have a higher risk. So how do you decrease that risk? Regular, lifelong learning. Always be enrolled in some sort of educational activity. If you have diabetes, that increases your risk. So how do you decrease the risk of diabetes? Diet and exercise. And if you have diabetes, you want to make sure it's tightly controlled. Otherwise, it's a blood vessel disease, and it causes disease in your brain. Smoking. Smoking's a nightmare for brain function. Now, interestingly, the early studies on smoking and Alzheimer's disease said smoking protected you from Alzheimer's disease. But when they actually looked at the data and they figured out how it protected you from Alzheimer's disease, do you know how it protects you from Alzheimer's disease? You're dead! Dead people don't get Alzheimer's disease. But when they corrected for the dead people, what they found is it increases your risk. Of course, because it's constricting blood flow to the brain and it's poisoning you. Untreated depression and untreated attention deficit disorder are risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. So how do you prevent that? Is you treat them. These are brain disorders. Cancer treatment. How unfair is that? You get cancer and you have to take chemotherapy, but as chemotherapy kills cancer cells, it also kills normal cells. So if you've had chemotherapy, you want to be on a brain healthy program as early as possible. Make sure you talk to your doctor. People who have sleep apnea, you know what that is? People who snore loudly, stop breathing multiple times at night, chronically tired during the day. Untreated sleep apnea doubles your risk for Alzheimer's disease. You should get it treated. If you get your nails done, or you get your hair done too often, it increases your risk. You know, one of the occupations at the highest risk for Alzheimer's disease are cosmetologists. And I think it's because they're being poisoned. When you go get your nails done or you go get your hair done, make sure the place you go has great ventilation. The treatments we have for Alzheimer's disease work early, really early. They don't work late.